Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Today, I am here with Lana Borealis, and she is also a multidimensional guide, and she calls herself a demon wrangler. We're going to get into more of that here, but I want to welcome Lana, and I want her to introduce herself some more as well. So Lana, welcome. How are you?
Hello, Nikki Starr. It is really lovely to see you. It's lovely to be here with everyone. I'm doing fabulously.
I love your laugh. I love it. I laugh loud and full of life as well. So bring the laughs, especially because we're talking about a topic today that's maybe intense. And even recently, I think you liked the reel when I was talking about karma, and I was like laughing because I do think we need to take these like heavier topics to be a bit lighter in our lives. So I would love to, so tell us a little bit about yourself and what you call yourself and how you support people in the world.
Yeah, so I work with individuals one-on-one and in groups, and I think of myself as like a healing accelerator. So when people come to me and they do a session with me, oftentimes like the work that we do in it, so it's always very personal. Every session is different. And so the techniques and tools that I use in every session changes from person to person. But what I have noticed from person to person is that they leave that session and they are blasted up. And it usually it can initiate like big changes in like a good way. It can initiate like spontaneous physical healing. It can initiate an expansion of their spiritual path, or even if they weren't really on a spiritual path, suddenly they're like, whoa. And a lot of times there are entities involved in the work that I do. So there's almost always discarnates, which are soul fragments that get attached to people's energy fields. And there are very frequently demonics, which are, of course, as we know, another kind of entity that can get attached to people's fields. And, the funny thing about the laughter is that I feel like, and so I'm just like a person that laughs. I laugh at all the things all the time. And it's not fake. It's not forced. It's just like, that's how I operate. And I've found that when you laugh at things that we consider darkness or intense or heavy, it really helps to dissipate them. It really helps to actually take away their power. And so, when you're laughing, talking about karma in your reel the other day, that's correct. That's like, yeah.
Yeah. And I want us to let us really assume that no one knows anything on this podcast. So you mentioned like demons, as we know, because actually in ancient magic, demons were not necessarily bad. A demon was created it was an energy form that was created with a specific task. And it didn't mean that it was a dark task. So it does depend. Same thing. Like some people use the word entity to describe something, but it doesn't always mean that an entity is a negative thing or a harmful thing. So I really want us to go into this because I do believe there will be some people that will listen to this that don't really talk about or know about entities or demonic possessions or something like that, like the way we know them, because we can see and feel things as sensitive mediums and guides and intuitives. And this is to me like feels like a risque, like coming out of the closet kind of topic for the podcast. Cause I have talked about energy work and stuff, but I haven't gone as far to talk about entities and demons or anything like that. Even though when I was recently here, so I'm here in the Sacred Valley and I did my Rose Dieta, she kind of made it clear, like it's time to start talking about these things and what they can be the cause of in people's lives in terms of suffering and sickness and illness and disease. Because usually I'm just talking to it about people who are inside of my one-to-one or programs more intimately. But if you scroll my Instagram, you're not going to see anything about that stuff. But I feel like it's time, because I've gone through my own journey of clearing them both ancestrally, karmically, in my generational line. So it's time like we start talking about this a bit more in a bigger way. And so like when I saw your title on your Instagram of like Demon Wrangler, that made me laugh, right? Because it's like I just imagine it like, come on, you're getting off there, like you don't belong on this person, like let's go. And that's like what I was getting the image of. And so yeah, I guess let's start there. Let's talk a bit about like what entities and demons in the sense of like something that is parasitic or harmful to a person. Like I know that it can cause cancer. It can cause all kinds of pain. So when people have like joint pain, and especially in certain areas like neck, upper back, anywhere in the pelvis, like or even in the heart, like anywhere that we have energy centers, big energy centers, like in the crown. So people who have like headaches or these unexplained headaches, like this might be you having an energy in your field that's not yours, that's not serving, that's causing this stress on the body. And some people think like, oh, I need to go get surgery on my shoulder. But actually, if you just cleared the energy there, you wouldn't need the surgery. And so I guess if you want to also kind of elaborate on some of that, yeah, and like some things that you've maybe seen, like people who've healed when you've cleared things, some things they've spontaneously healed from.
Yeah. So first, before I get into all that, I do just want to say that, all the work that I do, I specifically do it whilst connected to an individual's higher self. And through that connection, I run everything I do by their higher self. So that means that like I am not interfering with their free will in any way, even though they come to me and want this, the work done. I also don't interfere with the free will of discarnates or demons or really any other beings that I might encounter, attached or otherwise affecting people. And back in the beginning when I first got into this work, I spent a lot of time and energy literally battling forces of darkness. And I realized that that is not the way, because in these battles, I'm basically feeding these things that I'm trying to, you know, um, trying to get rid of, And so, this has been a long journey and it came up out of like necessity because my partner at the time, who I married and who was also my business partner, he became very possessed. And so it was through like trying to figure out what to do with that I got into this. And then he ended up unfortunately killing himself because he couldn't he couldn't acknowledge that they were affecting him and that they were running his life. And so I got a very personal, up close and personal, lesson about how really awful they can be and how they get in, what they do while they're in there, and what their ultimate goals are. And their ultimate goals are not necessarily for someone to kill themselves, because then that of course does take away the host. But sometimes, you get the combination of the person who feels really desperate because these things have gotten in and get in so far, which is like you're saying, they can get in all these various parts in the body. They lodge themselves in the body, they lodge themselves in the energy field, and they hook in. And, you know, as human beings, we don't know the laws of the universe like all the other all these like really super intelligent and advanced aliens that are out there, and, you know, demons and angels, and we don't know the rules. And so people don't really understand that, you know, we are actually giving our permission to them with our certain actions and thoughts. And so, I mean, it could start with anything. It could start with like being abused by someone. So there's a pattern that starts, and it gets a fracture in. And once you've got that fracture and there's this unhealed trauma, they very frequently latch into unhealed trauma because it's this dark, unlooked at part of us that causes us to act in ways that are what I would call reverse firing, or they're distorted. And so they're not in line with our original divine blueprint. They're not in line with who we are as a soul. And so they can get in through through abuse, through, you know, patterns, self-harming patterns, and self-hating patterns. So really, there's so many many ways that they can get in.
Also, they can get in through alcohol and substance use, which is one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of substance-free living. And that's why it's called spirits alcohol, because it invites the spirits in. Literally, that's why it was created back in the day by the natives. It was used only for ceremonies and rituals where they wanted to channel beings and bring beings into their bodies. And so anytime there's like regular use of substance that causes you to dissociate from your body, they're like, oh, hey, there's a void. Let me go in there. I can get in there.
Yes.
So yeah. And then, like you said, different types of abuse, any kind of trauma, literally any kind of trauma, any way that we don't act is love. And I'm happy that you're going this direction and we're starting here, because I wanted to add a few more things too. One is, one of my mentors actually told me that if an entity or demon kills someone, that they get to incarnate. So sometimes they can whisper to, they're like responsible for why people sometimes go on killing sprees and hurt other people. And they say like, a voice told me to do that, right? That's because that's an entity or a demon. And also, when people they kill themselves similarly, it's like it wasn't them, because like a human's not gonna interrupt divine timing. Like your soul's coming here to evolve, and so usually that is the responsibility of the entity that's like, so it's so sad because it causes a lot of mental disturbances, even like some forms of schizophrenia, and when people, you know, and even split personalities and all of these kinds of, like you said, fractures of the soul. So anywhere like our energy field is not intact, we're put at risk, which is why like energy hygiene is so important. And actually in the bonus section, Lana's going to guide us through a way to really support our energy field for greater protection and for your greatest embodiment. So you're less at risk and you're showing up with a frequency that they wouldn't even be interested in. Because this is all a frequency game. It's like attracts like. So like Lana was saying, if there are patterns or ways of beings or things you say, it's like you feed them. So when you get angry and you feed a trigger, you feed the entities. So that's why it's so important we do our work and our spiritual development and learn to harness and be centered in peace, love, and compassion, because they don't like that stuff. Like it's not food for them. But any kind of hurting, harming, discord, that's like yummy. Fear, anxiety, yum yum. So yeah, so thank you for talking about that stuff. And please keep going. And also, I just want to honor you and send my condolences. I didn't know about your past. So what a way to be like initiated on your path with something so close and someone so close to you being so affected. So of course, no wonder I see how you've now been led to where you are today in terms of your dharma and your work.
Yeah. Thank you. It was a long time ago, but, and, he and I had other sort of karmic contracts to work out. So he was fulfilling his purpose, in a very deep way. I don't know about by the killing himself part, but, anyways, thank you. I do want to emphasize that it's not about like ignoring or pushing away unpleasant emotions, because like that's not the way either. We're going to have things come up, and so it's really all about like a healthy way of recognizing emotions, like especially the unpleasant ones, experiencing them, looking at their source, really learning to like understand where they come from and why they're happening, because that way they don't get turned into a trigger. They don't get turned into an opening where an invitation to the forces of darkness. And like, I don't actually put discarnates in the category of forces of darkness, because those are just lost soul fragments mostly, that have not fully crossed over, and they're just confused, and they do get stuck to negative thought patterns. And then that becomes the thing that they're drawn to, and they plug into that, and then they encourage that in people as well. So then it causes these like hamster wheels of getting sort of stuck on negative thoughts and negative feelings. And so, and a very similar thing happens with the demonics, but they're more intelligent, and they're they have more strategy.
They know what they're doing. They're calculated.
Exactly. Whereas discarnates, they're just hungry souls. They're starving, hungry, lost things that are confused. And so them I just cross over to what I call the plane of bliss. And so it's actually really helpful when people come to me with discarnates, because I'm like, oh yay, we can we can now cross our friends over to the other side, and they don't have to stay here in this confusion anymore.
And it's funny is there's a lot of cultures like Chinese culture, like Balinese culture, even back in the native days, where there were days dedicated and there were people who were the midwives of death, because we need to have regular fire rituals and regular rituals that help those beings cross over. But in this day and age, where, modern world is not really honoring what's the unseen. And so there's so many of them just hanging around, because there's not these dedicated moments like before, where there was like someone in the village that was like dedicated to doing that work. And this is also why, like, houses are haunted and all that kind of stuff, is because there's not this continuous process of helping these souls cross over.
Yeah.
And people
absolutely.
are also not learning how to die, because you can learn how to cross over yourself, but everyone in mainstream culture is like scared to talk about death. But whereas we can really prepare for death and even choose when we go as masters, we really can do that.
Yeah, 100% on all of that. And like that I was like, ooh, that's a good idea. I should start hosting, bring your dead, and I'll send them, we'll send them to the other side together. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then now that like people kind of have a better understanding of like what's an entity, what's a discarnate, either way, if they're in your field, they can cause health problems, mental problems, problems in your relationship, discord, fighting, depression, all kinds of illness and disease. Because a lot of times people think, well, where does it come from? It comes from the energetic world first. Everything comes from the energy world first. And so if you have an understanding of that, and the more sensitive you become, you start to feel these niggles and these things inside your body. And instead of just putting it off to Western medicine and thinking like, oh yeah, like I'm just going to take a pill for the pain. And if you actually start looking at your energy field, you might find that clearing energy, which you can learn to do yourself, is equally as powerful as taking a pill, except the energy is going to stay there. If you take a pill, you're just going to become numb to it. Whereas if you actually learn to move energy and let it flow through your body, you're like constantly cleaning yourself. And this is what I like to call energy hygiene. So just like you brush your teeth, you take a shower, you're going to want to take care of your energy field. And like I said, in the bonus section, we're going to get into that more. But yeah, Lana, I guess from your personal experience, like what have you witnessed people have in terms of any diseases or even situations improve in people's life because they took the time to do the work to kind of check their field and see what was going on and cleared energies?
Yeah. So I would say first on touching on all those things, learning what is coming from here,
So
and
she's
what's
saying
coming
brain,
from
heart,
here. So like discerning the difference
and
between what is
energy
coming
field.
from within you, whether it's your gut, your heart, or your mind, your soul, whatever, and what's coming from outside of you is kind of like really a big first step, because you might be hearing like, oh, you're ugly, you're worthless, you're not good enough. And like, that's never, ever, 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 ever coming from any part of you. No. And I'm talking about the universal you, obviously not you personally, Nikki Starr.
Yeah. Everyone, all of you listening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of us, like all of us. And like, I've done personally a lot of work on myself to get here, but I still get it. And I have to, go and question myself. And I'm like, okay, where's this fear or this anger, whatever is coming up? Where is it coming from? And it really takes a willingness to investigate, like, okay, where is this coming from? And sit with yourself for a moment, really sit in that and like, okay, so my friend said this thing that triggered this fear. And then you're like, okay, so my friend said the thing that triggered the fear. And then really diving into it and figuring out exactly what's going on. And then why it's like fear or anger or whatever. And then dissecting it to the point where you can almost just release it. I do, of course, have some exercises that I'm going to share at the end. And one of them is to really kind of, it's more of like in training your energy field than it is an actual shield. It's called a shield, but it's not really a shield so much as it is an entrainment. And it's in training your energy field. And you can do this there are countless ways. You can make up your own too. Like you don't have to like always like you can take it like some ideas from me and some ideas from Nikki and like put all these things together and like, ooh, like now I've got my own idea, like it's fine. Like it doesn't have to be a certain way. People really get hung up on like, well, but how do I do that? And it's like, well, I can show you some examples, but you do it however you want. Your consciousness is the power. That's the magic. That is the whole thing. Right? That's the whole thing that is letting them in. It's the whole thing that's going to keep them out. And so, yeah, back to the spiritual hygiene, that is just like a really necessary part of really being sovereign, because this is really about getting sovereign. And I mean, sovereign as a soul, sovereign as a body, sovereign as a human race, because we have been
Let's define sovereign.
Yeah.
So, because, so as some of you know, I have an ascension code sovereignty, but most people don't even know what sovereign means. So we'll both share what we feel sovereignty is. So for me, sovereignty is when you are free from any energetic outside programming influence and you're embodied as your true divine essence, your truth. Not anything that's been put on you, conscious, unconscious, or subconscious. It's almost like you come to this like purified field where your thoughts, beliefs, and everything comes from the truth of who you are and nothing else outside of you, so that there's no distortions and there's no cords and there's no other energies, other people's energies in your field. It's like, are you 100%? Because most people think they're free, but they're really not, because energetically they're not free, because they're corded and they have all these programs in their mind, and then there's all entities and energies in their fields. So that's what I believe. And even karmic contracts, where you're like in these vows and these agreements, even from past lives, like all that stuff we need to clean up and bring you fully sovereign, fully 100% present here and now. That's how I define it. How do you define it, Lana?
Yeah, pretty similarly. I mean, I would even take it like way more simple, and just like, you are the captain of your own vessel, and your vessel is like whole in that it's not, there's not a bunch of fractures, and that's really it. You're just there in your vessel. You're the captain of it, and you get to decide. Like, maybe you might be on a stormy ocean one day, but you get to decide how you respond to that stormy ocean, and you get to decide, yeah. So yeah, it's just, just the simplicity of that for me is where, and when I think about us as like a human race being sovereign, wow, not only does that feel like a really big deal, but it's like we will no longer be under the oppression of, for one, each other, but that's not even the main thing, under the oppression of the forces of darkness that we have been for thousands and thousands of years, and who are, I believe, nobody else has to believe this, who I believe are sort of running the show, or have been, and they're starting to get kind of pooped out, because we are taking responsibility for our consciousness, and people are realizing that, wait a minute, there is a much bigger picture than we are being shown. And like, how do I become the captain of my vessel, basically, is what people are right now saying. They're like, wait, I haven't been the captain. Like, who's the captain? And like, how do I get to be the captain?
Yeah. I totally agree and believe that there is a battle of forces of light and darkness in the universe, also manifested on this planet. I literally believe like that's why I incarnated into planet Earth, like to help the side of the light forces. So you're not the only one who believes that. And definitely through different, and this year we're going to get into like what people think are like all of the, what do you call that when people like conspiracy theories or something. I do believe that there are forces behind like government systems and corporate systems that make people sick and keep them sleeping, with programming and movies and stuff in the food. And so this is ways that the forces of darkness manifest. For example, anything that's anti-life, anything that's anti-evolution. Whereas like I'm here for the evolution of humanity, and for us to come back to that peace and harmony with each other and all beings and things on this incredibly beautiful, rich, abundant planet. And it's everything to create heaven on earth, but it's really the way we choose to live that decides that. And that's essentially what the spiritual awakening journey is you becoming sovereign, you waking up, taking responsibility, becoming self-aware, changing the patterns to stand and be in your light. Yeah. And it's happening. I feel the light forces are winning.
Me too.
Okay, good. We're winning! Yeah!
Well, it's like, I heard somebody say this one time, and I was like, ooh, that's the thing. Instead of the powers that be, they're the powers that were.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. The powers that were. Keep it, like give them less power. And the other thing I wanted to say to you is like laughter is so good. You know why? Because laughter opens the heart, and love and compassion is an antidote. And same with you. I agree. There's certain ways you don't really wrangle them anymore, because the more you fight, you give them energy. It's like, I see the divine in you. I have compassion for you. And that is like their kryptonite. Because some of them actually like wake up and want to go to the light. Well, when you see like, when you see the divine in them, it's like,
of this phase of my journey with them has been like, okay, bros, like you got three choices here. Do you want to go back to source? Do you want to go back to basically the galaxy or whatever, the time, space, whatever that you came from? Or do you want to go back to being an angel? Because all of them were angels once upon a time. And they can go back. And it feels really good to go back.
Yeah. 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 So we're coming towards the end. And so I would love to, like, I feel like this is the initial question again, which is share some like beautiful stories of things you've seen when people have, you know, they have the self-awareness, they start doing the work, the energy hygiene, they maybe come for a session, they clear things. Like I know people who've like healed their cancer.
Yeah.
I know people who've healed their relationship dynamics, the pain gone. Like what have you seen? If you think of like case studies of people who, when they've actually taken the time to heal and clear these energies, like what you've seen.
Yeah. So this is a really extreme example. And this was just having a discarnate cleared. And I think there was an auric clearing. So it was really like just a tiny bit of shift in their energy field. And she went from being heroin addicted to being able to get totally free. So what happened to this woman, is her friend who was addicted to heroin had died from a heroin overdose, and she had never touched heroin in her life. And they were really close. And so when her friend passed on and a soul fragment stayed behind, and it wasn't his whole soul, it was just a fragment, but still that little fragment that broke off and stayed behind stuck to her, and she got addicted to heroin. Like, and when, and after she had a session, she was like, oh my God, it's so clear to me. Like, he died. I got addicted. Couldn't get up. Da, 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 da. Then I got the energy session. And like, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, he's gone. So that part of him that was trapped and confused and, that was causing her to get in these. And that's a pretty extreme example just from one discarnate. But, I've also
actually, it's not that extreme, because I do want to speak to that addictions are caused by entities. Any kind of addiction, love addiction, gambling, shopping, like that feeling that comes from an addiction, which is that like the feeling of like, I need the thing, I need the fix. That's the energy that they make the person feel to then go and get the thing. And then you have your experience that they feed on. And that's why addictions can be healed when you clear the entities that are causing them.
Yeah.
And that gives hope to people.
Yeah. I do feel like there is a certain amount of emotional processing and trauma healing that goes along with that has to happen. Because if you don't actually heal those patterns that the entities were drawn into, then they'll just get drawn back into them. And so there's
of course,
and so, yeah. But the entities definitely get in and like cause those patterns to get bigger and deeper and like really they get it. They're just, and that's I actually have a group program, Energy Magic Love, Keys to Freedom. And that is literally specifically for addictions, not just like drug and alcohol addictions, but all the addictions, because it's all like the same pattern of, especially there's like a lack of self-love that happens in that space. And so, you get into that self-hate stuff and you just really get it as a demon. They just really get in there and like crank on it. And like you start getting people into a state of self-love, that's going to just
clear everything. Yeah.
And I have seen,
so
I've seen other like physical spontaneous healings. Like somebody, had a heart issue that there was like a hereditary thing, and that magically spontaneously healed, and just things like that. What I've seen the most is people really being able to embody their soul more and more, so that it's like these things just kind of shake off. So the health problems will just shake off, and the addictions will just shake off. It's like,
and that's so beautiful. Yeah. It's like, and that's what I love about energy work, because I feel like it's the miracle work. Like it can happen in an instant. It really can. And I really want to empower people to not put, even though I'm a medical doctor, not put so much power into the hands of pharmaceuticals and doctors and all of that, because the power is really in your hands with your energy field, what you think, how you're being, how you choose to heal the past, how you choose to be with the present. And so if you want to add anything else, Lana, before I want you, and then when we close, I want you to share like how people can reach you, etc., where they'll find you. We'll include all the links, the link to that program and anything else. And yeah, let them know where they can find you on Instagram, your email, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I would just like to say that it is really helpful to reach out with people who have experience in the multidimensional realms for moving through and getting past these things. But I know that there are people out there who aren't going to do that, or who don't have money. And even though many of us do try to make it accessible, or, there's various different places and spaces you can go, I just want to say that you can do it on your own. It is possible. And like, it really starts with understanding your own thoughts, understanding your own emotions, and really working to process them, really working to get down into where your inner child is, and find that inner child and just love it up. Like, it doesn't have to be a complicated process. Just go into your body and be like, hey, little person in there. Like, I see you, I feel you. You look sad and scared. Like, can I give you a hug? Like, what would you like me to do to help you? Like, it doesn't have to feel like hard work. It doesn't have to be complicated. It literally is as simple as just plugging into your own self. And so if you're feeling like, but how do I even like do the things? It's a matter of just plugging into your own self. Give yourself a freaking hug and be like, I love you so much. Like, our bodies are just these beautiful gifts. And yeah, we don't know all the rules to the universe, and that's okay. Like, we're here and we're playing the game whether we know the rules or not. So start with love.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. Love, love, love. Love is the medicine. Self-love too. So where can people find you, Lana?
Ooh, they can find me at lanaborealis.com. And so I have all the various things there. But if you really want to just dive in, if people are like, well, I've got an addiction and I'd really like to get into that program. Right now, it's actually free to get in. That's going to change, but it'll only be like $20 a month or something. It won't be expensive, because I just want all the people to be there. And that's at energymagiclove.com. And I can be found on Facebook and Instagram. Sometimes I'm Energy Magic Love. Sometimes I'm Lana Borealis. It's not consistent. I know that's confusing, but
we'll include the links for what it is at the time of the release of this podcast episode. And if you want to continue with us, we're going to go into the bonus content, and Lana's going to guide us through an entrainment of our energy field to support us in optimizing and clearing energies that aren't serving us. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content, and remember, every Monday the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the ascension path with me and for doing this great work.